Every world hides a love worth breaking for. The invitation came as a moth made of moonlight. It landed on my bow in the ashwood at dusk, wings dusted with silver, body carrying a slip of parchment. Ink bloomed along its back like spilled night. By decree of the moon court, the centennial masquerade. Win and receive one wish from the gods. Lose and be forgotten. The new moon made the river a strip of black glass. From our cottage door, my brother braced a hand over his ribs, where the tithe's brand had started to burn. 13 next month. The mark had taken him early. I closed my fingers around the moth. The ink smeared like a bruise. The moon court stole our children. I would make them choke on the debt. I wore my sister's dress, the one she was taken in. I stitched a stolen crest to the bodice and borrowed a name that sat sharp on my tongue. Lady Elara of House Grey. A half-moon mask of blackthorn and silver fit my face like a dare. My bow traveled in a carved case. The knife lived against my thigh. When I whispered the invitation, the path opened. Stone steps glowed with starglass. Night roses sweetened the air with frost. Music threaded through the trees until they parted around a palace rising from a lake, bone-white spires, windows lit with molten gold, and a ring of thorns as high as towers. I crossed a bridge spun of moonlight that hummed under my feet. The lake below held unfamiliar constellations. I walked anyway. Inside, darkness had been polished to a shine, marble veined with shadow, chandeliers like cages dripping crystal, masks, wings, laughter that cut like a blade, and on a dais woven of obsidian briar, a throne. On the throne, the Lord of the moon court. Vael looked built of winter. Smoke-pale skin, hair black as a raven in snow, a mask of silver thorns curving over half his face. The other half was all trouble, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that could promise worship or war. A crown of living briars flexed as he breathed. He rose, and the room bowed like a dark tide. I did not. His gaze found me and held. I should have looked away. I didn't. Bell chimed. "The masquerade has begun," said a voice that made the chandeliers tremble. "The last mask to stand at moonfall on the third night will receive a wish from the gods at the moonwell. All debts end in blood." A gloved hand extended. Mine fit into it before I remembered how to breathe. "You're far from home, lady." His voice was a low midnight hum. Even with the mask, I knew he was not a man pain found easily. "Elara," I said, "of House Grey." He smiled like he collected lies the way others collected jewels. We turned. The floor shifted as if it listened. "The floor drinks lies," he murmured near my ear. "It spits back teeth. Tread well." "Then you should find it refreshing," I said, and his laugh brushed my cheek. A thorn caught my palm as his fingers laced with mine, a quick bright sting. Blood purled. He stilled. The room receded to the warmth of his hand, the cool metal at his cheek, cedar and frost in his breath. He lifted our joined hands and brushed my blood away with his thumb. 4 tiny punctures remained, a tight constellation. They burned, not like pain, like recognition. "Do not bleed for me," he said, quiet, private. "Then don't bleed me." His mouth tipped, not a smile, a promise of one. By the song's end, I knew 3 things. The moon court hid its rules in scars. The Lord of Thorns had seen my lie and let me keep it, and my heartbeat had started listening for his. The dance of lies left the room breathless. Couples formed a circle. A woman in a mask of petals lifted a goblet. "Answer, lie, and the floor takes your feet. Tell the truth and keep your breath." We moved as if a constellation were tracing itself. Questions flew like arrows. "What do you want most?" "Freedom," I said, and the marble steadied. Who would you betray? Anyone between me and my brother. What do you fear? I should have said nothing. I said powerlessness. A man nearby said, nothing at all. The floor cracked open. Black water slick as oil reached for his ankles. He screamed as it swallowed him. My turn to ask. I faced Vael. His eyes were winter flame. What were you before you were this? He tilted his head, listening to some private wind. Mercy, he said, and flinched so quick only I saw. The crown pulsed. A thorn bit. His expression didn't change, but my palm ached in response. The floor didn't move. He'd lied and taken the hurt into himself so the room wouldn't take it out on me. The bell ended the dance. Those remaining breathed like they'd been gifted lungs. Those gone were gone. He let my hand go slowly, fingers lingering. The tiny wounds burned steady, stars under skin. His gaze flicked to my mouth and away, and every part of me answered yes. I slipped into the gardens to breathe air not already used by strangers. Moonlight poured over wet stone and white blossoms. I ducked under an arch of roses. A shadow peeled off the wall like a second night. You shouldn't be alone, Vael said, softer here. Less lord, more man. It made my knees traitors. I've been alone a long time. I let my fingers trail a rose's thorns. Another sting, another star. What does your wish buy? He asked. More than a gown and a mask. He took my hand without asking. I let him. The 4 small wounds glimmered silver, then calmed. His thumb traced one circle, almost not touching. My breath hitched. You should go back inside, he said. That sounded like an order. It was almost a plea. The space between us shrank until common sense cleared its throat. He stepped back. The movement had the stiffness of command. Something rolled him, too. The hunt of masks opens in an hour, he said. Predators thrive in our maze. Try not to bleed for them. Who will bleed for me? It came out like a dare, or a prayer. He looked at me like a man looks at a fire he wants to step into. The thorns at his brow tightened. He winced and pretended he hadn't. I pretended I hadn't seen. The maze rose like beauty built on old cruelty. Hedges higher than a house, flowers that smelled like sugar and knives. The rules bloomed in light on the path. Find 3 mirrors. In each, a fragment. Break the false. Keep the real. Reach the heart. Survive the hounds. The first mirror showed my sister, older than death had allowed. Silver braided in her hair. A child on her hip. I broke the glass and moved. The second showed Finn coughing blood, eyes dull. You'll leave me, he said. I shattered the lie and followed my breath. The third was a black lake. My reflection wore thorns like a crown. Her eyes held slivers of gold. Her mouth was a promise and a warning. I didn't break her. I couldn't. Hounds found me then white and threaded with frost, eyes blue as ice, paws soundless. I ran. The maze drank my breath. Thorns scored my calf. Blood warmed the cold air. The hound's teeth clicked on the torn hem of my dress. A shadow dropped. Wingbeats thundered. Vael landed between me and the pack. His hand lifted. The thorn crown flared silver. The hounds flattened to their bellies and went still. Power cut the air sharp enough to taste. You were almost dinner, he said without looking at me. I'm used to almost. He glanced down at my calf, at the smear of blood. A storm crossed his face and cleared. His fingers hovered over the wound, not touching and touching anyway. The pain thinned. You can't keep saving me, I said. I'm doing a terrible job of that, he said, voice rough. The crown bit. He didn't flinch. He walked with me the rest of the way. Not beside me, exactly. Not. I listened for his breath and tried to teach mine the rhythm. The maze opened into a courtyard under a sky so full of stars it made my eyes water. In the center grew a tree of black glass. Ribbons, bones, and mirrors hung from its branches, each reflecting something you didn't want to see. A woman waited under the tree. No mask. Her gown fell like rain. Her face was someone's idea of gentleness that had never met grief. "You're mortal," she said, voice sugared and bold. "Both necessary where I'm from." "The rules are simple," she said, bored. 3 nights, 3 trials. The last to stand earns a god's attention. Every wish requires a sacrifice you didn't plan. She leaned close, eyes full of star-deep dark. "And every lord of this court is tied to that wish in ways no one remembers until the blood runs." Behind me, Vael went very still. "Saris," he said, quiet, dangerous. "Enough." She laughed. "Always telling me what to do, little thorn." She touched my chin with a fingernail sharp as a needle. "Careful, mortal. He bites the hand that frees him." She drifted away, like mist uncurling. I faced him. "Tell me." He stared at the tree like it could change the truth. The crown had already drawn a thread of blood at his temple. "If a mortal wins a wish that breaks the tithe," he said, voice splintering, "the crown pays with its lord's life." The court spun. I touched the tree to keep the ground where it belonged. "You knew," I said. "Yes, and you still wanted you to win." Each word dragged like a thorn. "Wanted your brother to breathe. Wanted you to have the small things we stole. Do not ask me to choose you over them," I said. "I will never ask," he said, too fast, and his teeth bared as the crown punished the lie he told to spare me from hearing the truth. We stood so close, one step became a battlefield. "Why come as a lady?" he asked, quieter. "It's the only tongue your court listens to," I said. "Mortals who look like what we are don't get invited." His hand lifted to my face and stopped. He didn't touch me. Wanting lit its candle anyway. "I see you," he said, low. "Behind the mask, I see you." "What do you see?" "Everything I am not allowed to keep," he said. And this time, when his gaze fell to my mouth, he didn't look away. He leaned in. I stepped into him. The thorns hummed. His mask brushed my cheek. His breath warmed my jaw. His fingertip traced the edge of my mask, reverent, slow. He kissed me like starvation. I kissed him back like prayer. Heat, ache, relief. A door I opened and forgot to close. His hands found my waist. My fingers slid into his hair. The crown pulsed under my palm. He groaned, and I swallowed the sound. We didn't stop until air demanded it. When we broke apart, we were both shaking. "Don't make me your ruin," I whispered, wishing the opposite. "I've been ruined longer than you've lived," he said. "Maybe you could be the mercy." He pressed his forehead to mine. The thorns in my palm glowed warm. "Come," he said, rough, "before I do something I can't free you from." He led me to a greenhouse thick with moon lilies. In the one corner the court never watched, he knelt and cleaned the blood from my calf with hands that shook. He touched my skin like a vow he didn't know how to voice. We didn't sleep. We learned each other's breath. Petals fell like quiet rain. When at last he moved inside the space my body made for him, it felt like choosing the very thing that would undo me, and trusting it would also make me whole. We went still at the end. The court faded. Rules faded. Only our hearts remained, loud and certain. He traced the marks on my palm with his mouth. His fingers trembled once on my hip. "Love is a vow you make with your wounds," he whispered against my skin. "Don't swear lightly." I didn't swear. I had already promised. The oath of fire took place in a hall made for endings. The moonwell smoked with shadowed light. The ceiling opened to a pearled sky. The gods watched, faceless as pressure. Masks gathered. Some glinted with hunger, some with pity. Saris smiled like a person who loved bad endings. Step to the edge of the well. Throw in what you can't live without. Speak your wish. Pay. I walked to the lip and took off my mask. The room flinched. My name is Elara Grey, I said. Mortal, not invited by grace. Whispers snapped. Vael went very still on his throne, hand white on carved stone. The crown vibrated like it wanted to run. I looked at the mask I'd used to survive and let it go. It struck the water without a sound and vanished. I throw away the lie, I said, and my heart answered, thank you. The gods leaned toward me like wolves. Iron touched my tongue. Saris laughed. Always teaching, little thorn, she purred toward Vael. Look how brave your mortal is. He didn't look away from me. The briars pressed deeper into skin. I wish, I said, voice steadying, that the moon court will never demand a tithe from the mortal realms again. I wish that debt unstitched and left in the dark. Balance requires blood. The well erupted, light like a flood and a fire together. Vael folded forward, fingers digging into stone until it cracked. Blood slid from his temple, silver dark. Stop, I said to the gods. Not his life, take mine. Silence became a blade. Vael lifted his head. Black ringed his irises. No, he said, storm deep. No. He pushed up, and Saris moved like silk. The knife went under his ribs and came out wet. He inhaled, eyes wide with surprise, like the ocean noticing rain. It was supposed to be yours, she said to me, sweet as poison. But you gave us a better story. I moved without thinking. I slammed into her. My knife found her side. She hissed, struck me hard enough to ring my ears. Hounds poured in like broken snow. Masks screamed. The court fractured. Vael tore Saris off me with one hand at her throat. With the other, he pulled the blade from his body and flung her into the well. She twisted midair and smiled at me as the water took her. She didn't scream. Vael dropped to one knee. He pressed the blood-slick knife into my hands. Listen, he said, breath ragged. The wish will take. You can run. Live, find your river, go. I'm not leaving you. Thorns crawled from his crown down his face, hungry. He didn't make a sound. I held his face, not caring about the blood. Then don't lie, I said, not now. He didn't. The tithe is the chain. The crown is the lock. It is bone. It is life. It is mine. It is me. He smiled like a man who had chosen how to die. I would bleed for joy if it meant your world breathed free. What if the crown isn't you? I whispered. What if it's a choice? His eyes flicked to the well, to me, back to the thorns that had grown used to him. They paused, listening. I wish, I said, and the gods turned their heads, for the tithe to end, and for the curse that ties the crown to its lord to fall on me. Let me be the crown that bleeds. The hall broke like glass in the cold. The light rose from the well, deep as wine, and reached for me like it had always known my name. The thorns uncurled from Vael and leapt to me. They wound my wrists, slid into my hair, pressed into the 4 bright points in my palm. I gasped. The pain was clean as a road you choose. Stop, Vael roared. Chandeliers shook. He tried to pull the thorns away. They hissed and ignored him. Please, he said, and the word broke. I framed his face with shaking hands. I am not a girl who lets someone die for her when she can learn to carry sharp things, I whispered. Don't make me a coward. He pressed his mouth to my palm, teeth catching on the thorn punctures like he could chew fate free. The thorns wrapped my ribs and found my heart and pushed. I saw Finn laughing in sun. I saw my sister hold a child with silver in their hair. I saw our river run clear. I saw myself with a crown that had learned to be a wreath. I screamed. The sound felt like something leaving and something beginning. Light sank. The hall smelled like rain after lightning. The well went still. The gods slid back into whatever shapes they wear when they aren't breaking us. The thorns at Vael's brow softened to vine and fell away. He trembled against me, as if a world had been lifted from his back. He caught my wrists and kissed the living bracelets of briar like a starving man allowed bread. Round us, masks hung crooked over human mouths. Hounds lay down and slept. Quiet gathered, heavy with the work ahead. He pressed his forehead to mine. "You ruined me," he said, wrecked, "and saved me in the same breath." "You told me not to swear lightly," I said. "I didn't." He laughed, ragged and young for a heartbeat. He cupped my face and kissed me slow under a ceiling of gods who couldn't stop us. We burned the masks. We turned the tithe into stories and apologies. We sent the hounds to sleep in moonlight, where they dreamed of snow that didn't bite. Some courtiers left. Some stayed. Flowers pushed through Ceres's floors. I sent a moth with a message. I received one back in my brother's untidy hand. "You did it, El. The river sings. No one sleeps with a knife under the pillow. Come home if you can." On the balcony above the lake, dawn made the stone blush. Tiny white flowers bloomed in my braid. Vael leaned beside me, forearms on marble, like a man rediscovering gravity. "What does it feel like?" he asked, eyes on the water. The crown. The thorns at my wrists lay light as breath. When I pressed a finger to one, it pricked me, drew a bead of blood bright as morning. "Like a promise," I said, "like holding a blade by the edge and knowing I chose to." "And does it feel like me?" "It feels like us." We took the last thorn from his temple together. He winced once. I kissed the place and felt his breath catch. "Will you take me to the mortal realm?" he asked, almost shy. "I've never seen a market where money isn't gossip." "You'll hate it," I said. "No one bows, and the pies are terrible." "I'll eat the terrible pie," he said, smiling like a man who couldn't believe his mouth remembered how. "I'll stand in your river. I'll watch your brother try not to thank me and do it anyway. And then we come home," he said, reaching for me like he finally knew what hands were for. "We make this court into something we can live inside. We teach it to love the people who serve it. Love is a vow you make with your wounds," I reminded him. "I know," he said. "Come be mine." We went through the ashwood when the moon was a sickle, and the moths were small as snow. Finn waited on the bridge with his hands empty of pain. He saw me and forgot how to move. He saw Vael and remembered how to breathe. Vael bowed like a man putting down a weapon. "You stole my sister," Finn said, half a joke, because the old anger didn't know where to go. "She stole me," Vael said solemnly. I elbowed him. They both laughed, and the ghost of the tithe finally had somewhere to rest. We stayed until the river learned my name again. We stayed until frost rimmed the leaves, and Vael complained it got into his bones. And I told him he didn't have bones like ours, and he proved me wrong in ways I didn't argue. When we returned to the moon court, the thorns on my wrists bloomed. The court bowed because it wanted to. I wore a circlet of living branches that knew when to be light and when to remind me with a bite. Vael wore no crown. On nights when the palace was too loud, he rested his head in my lap, and I combed my fingers through his hair until the shadows softened. "We did something impossible," he said once in a garden that no longer tried to eat anyone. "The world will forgive us eventually, and if not, then we'll be a legend that tastes like the truth," he said. "They can live with that." He stood and offered me his hand. I took it. The tiny scars in my palm warmed like stars waking. We walked the Palace of Thorns and chose carefully where to bleed. We learned that joy is a beast you feed or it eats you. We fed it. There will always be courts and crowns. There will always be debts. But now, the moon no longer demands children. A lord learned how to kneel. A mortal chose a crown and taught it how to be a wreath. Sometimes, when the lake holds the stars like secrets it actually means to keep, he leans in, breath at my ear, and says the one line I never tire of bleeding for. I would burn the moon to give you a dawn. I turn, kiss him, and taste the truth of it. The thorns do not bite. She chose the thorn, and the thorn chose her.